Okay, we've never recorded a podcast in the daytime before, so this is a new experience. Today I have a guest instead of 7. Much better replacement. I'm just kidding. No, this is my mom, Cammie Crawford. Most of you probably know who she is. You want to say hi?
Hey everyone, glad to be here with Eden on her podcast.
Thanks. It's actually me and 7, so it's just mine. All the good parts are me, all the bad parts are 7. Today I wanted to have you on because I wanted to ask you about songwriting and playing guitar and creating your first album. Now you're working on your second album, right?
Well, I've done 2 albums, so
technically... Oh, yeah. So you're working on your... Wait, are you working on your third album then?
Yeah. I'm not working on it, but I am... I have in my mind that I want to make a third album, but it's been a rough start.
Okay. But you already have 2... What is it? The Grammys? 2 Grammy-winning albums.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but especially because I think, even for me, like, I just turned 20 and I already feel like it's too late to do the things that I want. But I think that's silly. But I think, I don't know. You came out with 2 albums, and how old are you?
42. My first album, I was 40. My second, I was 42.
So 2 award-winning albums after 40. Anyways,
yes.
I have questions, but if you want to, do you have any,
Well,
thoughts?
yeah, I could speak on the age time thing. It is interesting that I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's a common feeling of feeling like you're behind somehow. Maybe it's because we all measure ourselves against other people, and our story is never going to be the same as someone else's story. And I'm remembering this video I watched about, I think Picasso was one of the people, but there was these famous creative people that did all their works that were the most well known in their 60s. So it's just interesting that and now that I'm in my 40s and I remember what it was like in my 20s, I think that's, I had no, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, except for it's just it's, I wouldn't say it's silly, kind of what you said, but I would say it's kind of unrealistic maybe, or it's, I don't know. It's just not something that, I didn't even know who I was in my 20s. I don't even really know who I am now, but I know a lot better now than I did in my 20s. So it's just, I don't know. It is kind of, it's where does that message come from? And do you need to believe that?
Yeah. I don't know why, but because I've been looking into going to college recently, and I've been putting off a lot of the things that I could do to even get myself started. And one of my thoughts was oh, it's too late. I feel, because a lot of my friends have already gone through college or are about to finish college or are in college halfway through, because a lot of them went to college earlier. So I feel there's something wrong with me doing it now. Anyways, today I just signed up for some, but just a call for financial help person at one of the colleges that I'm interested in, which is like the first time that I've done something that real, even though it's like just a call, you know, like it's not like they're just giving you information on the college. That was like the first step, besides taking the ACT, that I've taken, I think, towards that goal. Anyways, I don't know why, but it's so weird, and I feel like it has nothing to do with, like, it's nothing rational. Like, if I'm 20 and I'm thinking that I'm too old for college, you know, like, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're not too old to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no one gets to set those rules for you. Like, as far as is there a rule of like you're too old or you're too young? I mean, we ran into that with the marathon with Rainier. He's too young, you know. So it's like on this different spectrum, but who gets to say someone's too young and someone's too old for something that they want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, and it just doesn't, I don't know, you're never, like, it just doesn't make any sense why someone would be too old to, like, finally start doing the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to the questions. When did you start getting into music, and what first, like, made you be like, oh, this is something that I want to try, or this is something that I feel like I might like? Or, like, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, I first started learning how to play the guitar because before that I didn't know any instrument at all. When we moved out here from Seattle to Kentucky, we found someone that became a friend of ours that was a music teacher, and I was 32, and I remember we started piano lessons with you kids, and at the same time I decided I'm gonna start learning how to play guitar. And your dad actually was the one that encouraged me about a year before that.
Wait, but like, why did you where'd you get the idea of like guitar and like?
Well, I think that feels a little fuzzy to me. I think it was like, again, I think your dad was like, why don't you learn the guitar? And maybe he can remember a little bit, but like there was probably, I like always hummed. Like I always like was like,
oh yeah,
like music was just like literally pouring out of me in the only way I knew how. And I was back then, like I actually was really afraid to sing in front of other people. It's only really been in the last like 4 or 5 years that's changed. And so humming was like the safest way for me to get music out without
actually doing it.
Yeah, and I think your dad knew me enough to be like, I feel like you could really benefit from learning how to play an instrument. And I remember kind of just looking at him and thinking that was impossible. Thinking like, I remember saying to him, I don't know anyone that knows how to teach me. And at the time we didn't live here. So then we move like a year later and we find Brian. And I started learning how to play the guitar, and that in itself was really fulfilling. It was hard. And I did it off and on for like the next 9 years. And
that's a long time.
Yeah, I got to the point where I felt pretty comfortable with it. And then around, 2019, I mean, I was going through a ton of changes, and something just sort of switched or clicked for me. I mean, I think one of the things was I really was taking a step back from my family of origin and really not engaging with them as much. And just a lot of stuff was happening. A lot of stuff was happening behind the scenes for me. And I felt really kind of like this like release or this freedom to just start writing music. So I just started to do it. I didn't know anything about it. I knew, like, at the time I probably knew 8 guitar chords. I don't know a ton more than that now, but I know a little more. And I just started writing really simple songs that it was kind of a type of journaling for me. I realized that I'm not a big journaler. Your dad and I don't know, other people like journal a lot and like write stuff down to help them process. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think it's writing a song out is my way of processing my emotions and things that have happened to me. So yeah, in 2019, I just started writing songs. And then, well, yeah, maybe that's like the end of that story. But
did you ever do that thing like when you were little? Had you ever written any songs that you like never made?
No,
I used to do that.
Okay, yeah, no, not that I can remember. The only thing that I remember musically that sort of pointed towards that I was into music in this way was I did a few solos like in front of church and stuff. I like sang. And I remember really liking that. Like I was terrified to be in front of people, but I also felt like I lit up to do that.
How did you get that like gig? How did you
that church gig?
Yeah.
That was really hard.
No, did someone like hear you, or was someone just like, "Oh, Cammy can sing," or did you volunteer?
I think it was a combination of people knew. Oh, I forgot about this. I also like led youth group worship. Like I was the one to sing. Again, I didn't play any instrument, but I got up there and sang. So I knew I could sing. And other people confirmed that for me. They were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. You can sing." And so, yeah, I had a few encounters throughout my like childhood and teenage years where it was like, "Oh, this is something I'm like good at." And I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But I was terrified of it, so I didn't really like pursue it, and it was really hard. Historically, it's been really hard for me to do things that are new. So I think playing an instrument felt so daunting to me to start. And again, like I remember thinking too, at 32, like who starts learning how to play an instrument at 32?
Yeah.
But I think people do. I just don't think enough people talk about it.
I think, yeah. Well, I also think people don't.
Yeah.
I think people don't start things because I think a lot of times it's hard to overcome that feeling of it being too late to even begin.
Why even bother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always excuses. I mean, there's always excuses to not do something.
Yeah.
I think some are more loud than others, and I think for some reason feeling like it's too late, like you already messed up, like that's like a big thing for me where I'm just like, oh, like it's too late, and then you don't even consider like maybe there's another way to do it, or like you don't even consider that like that could be a reason why you're not doing it. Right. You're just like, oh no, it's too late, therefore I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I've heard a lot that I think is out there, and there's truth to this, but I think we take it too far. And it is that when you're young, you have a really malleable brain, and so you can learn things really easy. And then when you get older, what I've heard is, it just gets harder and harder and harder to learn anything new. And I think there's truth in that, but I also think it's not true at the same time. Like, I actually think there is an ability for older brains to shift and to like rewire and to learn things. Sorry, it's okay. But maybe it's harder than when you're younger, but it's not impossible. And in some ways, and maybe this is going into like another field of questions, but in some ways it's even like a richer experience because you're older and you have this like, I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I've felt sad that I didn't learn this sooner as a child. But then I also am like, well, I have a pretty unique perspective now.
And if you had learned it, one of the things I was thinking about, like when you were talking about not pursuing singing in church as like a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even though you probably enjoyed like the sensation, you weren't singing for yourself. You were singing for this idea that like now you don't, I mean, I don't know if you don't believe in the same idea.
Yeah.
Whereas now what would you say you're singing for?
Well, I would say like back then it was probably mixed. It was probably I was singing for myself, but I was very like insecure. So I was also like singing for people to recognize me or something like that.
I was going to say singing for God.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that was in there too.
But
yeah, for sure. No, I think that was it. Yeah, it was all like in there.
Yeah.
But you were asking why, what does it look like for me now? Like, why do I?
I mean, I was just thinking about like a good reason to not pursue something would be like if at the time you didn't feel like you're like, I like this, but I don't like, if you had been singing for yourself back then instead of singing in a church.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just think about like the lyrics you were probably saying. It's
yeah.
just like not that.
No,
whereas
true.
now you're like writing the music that you're like, they're your stories or your experiences or your inspiration.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Totally.
Next question. I had something I was going to say, but I forget what it was. We kind of covered that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like is the biggest thing music has given you? I forgot to set this timer. Oh, I did.
Wow.
Oh, I was actually going to say. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
before,
it's okay.
This is what I've remembered. It's really weird to hear you talking about before making music because that I can remember, like, before you made music, you didn't have a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And now it's like, when I think of a guitar, when I think of songwriting, I think of you, or when I think of you, I think of songwriting and a guitar. So it's hard to imagine like you being separate from that or not having that.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Well, that's
back to the question.
That's cool to hear.
Of what music gave you.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think it gave me a lot. Maybe I would even rephrase that and say like it was like music was just a part of me.
Oh.
Instead of what did it give me kind of says like it's separate from me, but it's almost like I allowed myself to unlock a part of me that was always there. Mm-hmm. And what that gave me was I think it was so fulfilling because it's like for so long I was just not listening to that part of myself and didn't give it any time or didn't
wait.
I didn't honor it. I didn't even see it. I didn't even really know it was there. Mm-hmm. And then it's there, and I have this awareness that it's there and it's always been there. And so to give it light, it feels like I'm more like whole than I allowed myself to be before I started writing music. And man, yeah, I think it's given me a lot of confidence. It's made me understand myself in a deeper way. It's helped make sense of, as I look at my life in the past. I think I was really, like you talked about a creative outlet. I think I was frustrated and depressed for a long time because I didn't have it. I didn't even know I needed it or had it. I didn't really, it was like I was blind to that part of who I was. And I even have like language around it now that I didn't used to have because I've just heard other people talk about, like, when you don't follow your instincts and follow like this intuition that's inside of you that says like, oh, this is like the movie Soul, this is your spark. You know, like that is my spark. Like, that's maybe not the only thing, but that's like a huge thing. And so just imagine for 30 plus years just like not even knowing that spark is there.
Yeah.
It's sad to think about, actually. And I think I had a really low sense of self-worth. I think I had a low sense of just self, like, oh, this is who I am, and I am a worthy human being. And not that like music like gives that to me directly, but I think just like looking at that's a part of who I am and not ignoring that anymore, I think it really helps me. I don't know how else to say it except for I think it really does help me have a greater self-esteem about myself.
Well, to borrow one of your song's meaning or lyrics, I think, what is it? The song Smaller. I feel like if you're I mean, you were talking about having this like idea of yourself and then having low self-esteem.
Yeah.
I feel like if you like now you have let that idea of yourself grow to accommodate like other things.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, when I think about it, like that would be really hard for me to do because it's almost like I want the idea of myself to like make sense. So like I want, for example, like I want all my hobbies to align with like the things that I want to use to make money.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of things don't align, so it's almost like you don't want to allow them to be, because then you could end up being this complicated person with weird habits who likes weird things. And it's like, and that was kind of a tangent, but I was just thinking about, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
fix this.
Shoot,
It
there's
just turns off whenever. Oh, it's because the card is full. Dang.
Oh, so you got it. So should I stop talking then?
No.
Okay. Man, I had something else I was gonna say. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I remember now. I think one of the other things that writing music really helped me with is finding my voice. And it's really interesting, like with writing music and singing, you're literally like, your voice is being heard, right? You're like, I'm going to write this, I'm going to sing this, I'm going to play it, and other people are going to hear it. And simultaneously, I could just see in my life how I valued my voice more than I ever did before, and realized that I have things to say that are important, at least to some people. They're important to me first and foremost. And I don't ever really remember, like, I don't know the last time before that, like me really feeling that before I started writing music. So I think there's like this coincide, like I think music, like, I think it was more of a symptom of what was going on inside of me, of like, oh, I really am starting to value my voice. And then me valuing my voice, oh, I'm going to write songs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share them. Yeah.
I think it's weird it's really backwards. We think that like to feel better about ourselves, we have to get outside validation, but to actually feel better about ourselves, we have to like get it from inside ourselves first, I think.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
I don't know, I just imagine like you sitting alone in a room and being like, okay, these are the words that are coming to my mind, or this is the story that I want to sing about, and then you write a song.
Yeah.
And then it's like through that you get the courage to then perform that in front of people.
Yeah.
Instead of someone being like, oh, you should write a song, and you're like, oh, maybe I should. You know,
oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
But like it has to come, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think inevitably, I have to be the one to choose. Like, is this worth it to me? Am I worth it so that I'm going to pursue this? And it reminds me of the first song I wrote, which didn't make it on my first album, but it was total shit song, right? But
what was it about?
It was called Just People. And it was like, yeah, it wasn't good, but what's so beautiful about it, it's the first, like, it's my first song, and the first song that I like put down on paper, and I just remember being like, whoa, I did that. That is so cool. And of course I had other like feelings around it too, of like, oh, this is crap or whatever.
Yeah.
But as I look back on it now, I'm just like, that it was just really an important step. Like, even if no one ever hears that song, like I heard it, I wrote it, I remember writing it, I remember what I felt when I wrote it. And it's just, and that's, it's something that I continually try to remember, when I have ups and downs with
the feeling of when you wrote your first one.
Yeah. Or just like every step along the way in your creative process is a step. Like everything like builds on itself. Nothing is in vain. Nothing is, even if you think it's shit, nothing's really shit in the sense of everything matters that you do. As far as like, me writing that first song got me to the point where I wrote 2 albums. And I don't know what the future holds, but like, let's say these 2 albums got me to the point where, I wrote 2 more albums, and those albums were in some ways even better than the other ones, but they couldn't have been better if I hadn't started with that first shitty song.
Yeah. It's such a small thing, but so easy to forget.
Yeah.
Let me see how much time we have. We have about... I think about 15 more minutes. I guess I kind of have 2 questions. Whichever one you want to answer first, or if we have time, we might not get to both of them, but
yeah. One
is like, what are your dreams around making music, or what would you like to achieve, if any? And the other is if you have any advice for someone who wants to write a song, but like, actually I would make that question bigger, like someone who wants to start something, and their excuse is that it's too late.
Oh, yeah.
So that could really apply to like starting anything.
Totally.
And like, I would like think about like, what's the advice I would give myself?
Yeah.
Almost, because you like have to really get in that mindset. It's so weird, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, the first. What was the first question again?
Do you like what?
Oh, what was my
dreams, or what would you like to achieve around making music?
Yeah, that has evolved over the last few years. I mean, this is kind of a funny thing to just like say to me, or for me anyways, just to say, but like there's definitely a part of me that like wanted some kind of like fame or recognition around my music. And I really wrestled with that. Like I actually really didn't like that I wanted that. I'm just like, oh, it's so shallow. Or it's also really
it's not a pure reason for making this art.
It's also really frustrating because it's like that's probably not going to happen. So like,
I feel like if you do that, you have to compromise something.
Well, I don't even know if I know. I don't even know if I know what I'm asking for. Like, as far as like, do I really want that? Like, or does it just look nice? Because I don't know. I've had these conversations with your dad, and he's like, I don't really see you as like even wanting, not that you don't want fame, but like doing well with that, like having all that. And I think he's kind of right, because I'm kind of like I'm just more of a reserved person. So like if I don't know, to be famous, you have to be really like, whoa. I mean, you just have to have a ton of energy, I think, unless you just get famous
sort of like
somehow.
Well-built boundary that like, you're like, okay, this is the time when I pretend like I'm a normal person. And
and I guess when I say famous, like I'm talking musicians. I mean, man, they're touring, they're like on stage, they have to have all this energy. And if I'm honest with myself, I don't even think that's how I'm built. Like, I don't really think I have all that type of energy. So I've really tried to I keep coming back to that my most grounded reasons for doing music, I think, are for myself and for the few other people that are going to really be impacted by my music. And I guess there's some days where I feel like that's enough, and then there's some days where I don't. And I think so you're saying achievements. I mean, I think I would just like to keep writing and keep making albums. I think I would love it if I could make 2 or 3 more albums in my lifetime and have like, you know, a set of like 4, 5, 6 albums. I think that would be super cool.
Ultimate edition, all Cammie Crawford's albums.
Yeah. I would love to compose with other people in the future. I would love to get better at writing songs and get just better at performing even. And I don't know, not necessarily in front of like large crowds, but even just performing in front of small crowds or a small group of people, or even like on social media.
People who maybe appreciate what you're doing, or some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Where it resonates. The people who your music would resonate with. Yeah, and I think I kind of have I have a lot of reality checks day by day where it's just like, you know, my music isn't probably ever going to be popular. It's not that type of music. It's just, which makes sense. I don't know. The kind of music that comes out of me makes sense that it comes out of me. If that makes sense. Like, I'm just not like, I don't know. You're an acquired taste.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm very like, I have a hard time making like songs that are like, I don't even want to say shallow because I don't mean it in a negative way. But like, I have a hard time.
Or like not specific to you?
I have a hard time making not deep songs. Like as in like, oh, this is like intense, or this is like, not everyone's going to get it. Like I wrote a song about like internal family systems, you know, where it's like we have, which is like, not even everyone knows what that means, you know? Mm-hmm. So my songs aren't going to be poppy. They're not going to be super, I don't know. There's not going to be like mainstream, I don't think, unless like that's just what I'm realizing. So
I also feel like, what does it mean to be popular? Because a kid could be popular in their school, but their school could only have, a couple hundred students.
Yeah.
So in your genre or in your world or among your friends, your music might be popular. I actually kind of is.
Yeah. That's true. And also I'm just like, I also realize like, I don't even know, like we never see the full picture of like the ripple effects that we have in our lifetime and then even beyond our lifetime. So it's more of just like having faith that even though I don't see all the whys of like what's the use, right, of writing this music, even though I don't see it all, I believe that there's some pretty damn good reasons for me to be like making music, because when I'm doing it, it feels so like aligned with who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, if anything, if it makes your life better, it's worth doing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last, how much? We have 7 minutes. The last question, which I'll let you think about while I go turn on and turn off the camera. Any advice to someone who wants to write a song and or start something that, they might think is too late to start, or whatever like reason, it might be that they're not starting, but something that they want to do.
Yeah.
Just starting something. Hold on, let me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it goes back to even what we just said, is that I started writing music for me. Like I knew that was something that would really enrich my life and really help me. And if that's true, like if you're doing something that will help you, or that this is your spark, I don't really think the question, is it too late, even comes into play. Because if it's for you and this is something that's going to enrich your life, or this is something that, maybe you've always had that spark. I would say like you can't afford to wait, like, or you can't afford to not do it. Even if it's too late, like, can you afford to not do this? And for me, like, I don't think I could have. Like, I think if I would have succumbed to that and say like, oh, I'm only 32 or I'm only 40, it's too late. I think my life would look really different right now. And I don't think my life would be that great. Like, I think if I would have ignored that part of who I am, and, as far as like steps, like I would just like you heard my story, like I had steps, first I started guitar lessons, and it took it took a good 8 years before I started writing songs, and then I started writing songs, and then, so it's really going to take steps, I think. You first, I think the biggest thing, honestly, I think for a lot of people is figuring out what your spark is, because we've been so trained, I think, to not listen to ourselves and to our intuition from a young age, that takes some unlearning to actually listen to yourself and not downplay the things that you're interested in. And so that actually might be the most important step of all. I actually think just finding out what you even want to do. Some people have no clue, but it's not that they don't have it. It's that they've been told for so long that doesn't matter. I think, and that you shouldn't listen to yourself. I mean, if you look at a little kid, a lot of little kids, like you can tell what they like. Their spark is there, right? Mm-hmm. If you know how to look for it, and they will naturally like gravitate towards it. Even I did as a kid. Like I gravitated towards music. I actually think I needed someone to help me cultivate that. Mm-hmm. But I had the opposite, and I think a lot of people have the opposite, where it's like they get so distracted by things that they're not interested in, and they don't really care, but everyone's like, you should care. Like this is, if you don't do this, you're going to be hosed, And so, yeah, the first and foremost is find what lights you up, find what's your spark, and then like start from there into little steps. Like who do I go to help me with this? Or, there's so many resources nowadays that actually don't even cost very much money that you could go to for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, let that be a lesson to you guys. It's never too late, or whatever reason that you have for not starting what you want to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you want to do, try a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Is the answer.
Or remember what you were into as a child. Like what, if you can remember.
Ask your mom or your dad or
yeah.
your grandparents or whoever raised you or whoever was around.
Yeah. If you can remember, if someone can help you remember.
Pictures or videos.
Yeah. Because I think those blueprints are there at the very beginning with kids. Because they can't hide it either. And they learn how to hide it, but eventually.
Yeah. Trying to remember what I was interested in as a kid. Anyways, thanks for
ask your mom.
Yeah, if only I had a mom. Thanks for watching, listening and or watching this episode, and thank you for being here, Mama. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Talking about your spark. All right, we'll see you guys next time. There's no 7 to make weird comments. He's like, I love you. Like, and he puts it in the video, too.
Oh, that's funny.